The story begins with the introduction of 4 kingdoms known as Oahu, Maui, Kauai, and Hawaii. We are meant to know that they all lived on the same island but always got into war because of the cunning chiefs. Nearby, KAIANA and his family went fishing, and they saw a big fish. KAIANA jumped inside the sea and trapped it. The others helped him drag it out with the help of a rope. They caught the fish and all headed back home to their kingdom named Kauai. They got back to find their children playing with their stuffs and chased them all away. A little boy confronted KAIANA and asked him why he left Maui, where he was a chief, and came to Kauai to live as a villager. A few minutes later, they heard a noise alerting them that the Mauis were around. They came to KAIANA and told him to come back to Maui because he was summoned by the king named Kahekili. After much negotiation, KAIANA decided to meet them at Maui's shore the next day. The next day, KAIANA did in accordance to his promise by meeting the people of Maui, and they all headed to the warriors' field because that was where the king was. They had gotten to the warriors' field, and KAIANA noticed that the warriors of Maui were practicing like they had a war at hand. KAIANA was made to fight with one of the warriors before he got to the king. He dodged all the arrows thrown at him and fought with a warrior named Nui, and after their long, extended, entertaining battle, KAIANA defeated his opponent. KAIANA and the people knelt before King Kahekili. The king was happy to see KAIANA. He went on talking about how much he missed KAIANA's father before he died. He asked KAIANA to honor his father by joining him, but he refused in a polite way and asked the king why he sent for him. The king called him in, and he was being told about a prophecy that needed to be fulfilled. He told KAIANA to join him defeat the people of Oahu. KAIANA refused, reasons being that he doesn't want to kill humans again. The king assured him that there wouldn't be killings, and that they needed to get the high priest of Oahu down. KAIANA had an argument with his brother because he tried convincing KAIANA to accept the king's request, and that if he refused, the king would harm the people of Kauai. The next day, the king called for KAIANA and took him to a cave. In that cave, KAIANA saw the remains of his father. He broke down in tears on seeing this. King Kahekili told him to join him in honor of his father. KAIANA went to burn the remains of his father and bid to honor him. His brothers broke down in tears on seeing this. Later, KAIANA went to the Tala, the prophetess, to seek for advice. Tala only spoke in parables, so KAIANA didn't understand, but she made it clear to him that he should take his father's hands and follow the lead. He wasn't sure what that meant, and he told his sister about it. She also gave him his father's shear that was delivered to him by the king's men, and also told him to go with King Kahekili to defeat the Oahu. KAIANA dressed up in his battle robes and said goodbye to his sister. He and his family headed to where the king was. He then told the king that they could bring down Oahu with little bloodshed. He told him the plan, and also that they shouldn't harm the young king of Oahu. The whole family said goodbye to the sister, and they all headed to Oahu. They got to Oahu, and the men of Oahu fought them, trying to defend their land. KAIANA and his family defeated the front men of the Oahu warriors. While the battle was still going on, KAIANA saw the prophetess, but she looked unhappy before she vanished. He told his family to tend to the wounded, after which he and some others headed to the temple in search of the high priest. While they went to the temple, some of Oahu warriors attacked, but they defeated them. KAIANA got news that the King Kahekili was in Oahu, and according to the plan, he wasn't supposed to be there. They realized these individuals weren't warriors but are farmers. On the other hand, King Kahekili started killing the men of Oahu brutally, before he then ordered his men to kill everyone not excluding children and women, if after knowing fully well they were at the sacred ground. Immediately, KAIANA and his people got to where the king was to stop him, but sadly, by the time they arrived, Kahekili had already captured the young king. He tried to plead with Kahekili not to kill him, but he murdered the young king regardless. This made KAIANA very angry. He told the king that he just desecrated a kingdom. The king didn't care because he now had Oahu kingdom all to himself. The king's son followed KAIANA and told him he was lied to as well by his father. He saw how many people were killed, and he fell in tears, but his sister consoled him. Ahumanu was summoned by her father, who informed the family about Kahekili's assault on Oahu. He warned that battle would soon reach their island, and declared he had come to take Ahumanu with him. To secure their safety, he had pledged her hand in marriage. Ahumanu begged him not to force such a union, refusing to marry under those terms. Her mother, however, urged him to leave and promised she would later send Ahumanu to him. Meanwhile, Kahekili's son confronted his father about his deception. Kahekili explained his actions, insisting they were necessary. KAIANA's brothers were under the close watch of Kahekili's guards. When Kahekili summoned KAIANA to his temple, only KAIANA's weapon was found there, a clear signal of rebellion. Kahekili's men soon discovered that KAIANA and his family had escaped. Enraged, Kahekili commanded his men to pursue them and return with KAIANA's bones. KAIANA and his family went to retrieve their sister Heke before leaving the island, but she was nowhere to be found. They noticed signs she might be in the valley replanting crops. KAIANA ventured into the forest, sensing Kahekili's soldiers nearby. Upon encountering them, he attacked, but as more enemies arrived, he was forced to flee. His family, believing in his strength to survive alone, decided to continue searching for Heke without him. KAIANA darted into the woods with Kahekili's soldiers in pursuit, though they eventually lost track of him and split into groups to search deeper. Around the same time, pale-skinned foreigners landed on the island and entered the forest in search of food. Back at home, Kahumanu's mother confronted her again, stressing that marriage was their only path to safety. The following day, Kahumanu sought guidance from a prophetess, who told her something shocking. The gods themselves feared her, for she was destined to break the world. Terrified, Kahumanu fled back to her cave. Meanwhile, KAIANA's family finally reunited with Heke, overjoyed to see her again. They explained everything that had happened on Oahu and KAIANA's plight. Kahekili's men eventually caught up with KAIANA, hurling a rock that struck him down. Struggling back to his feet, he escaped into the forest once more. At one point, he hurled a pig at his pursuers, confusing them long enough to make another escape. Exhausted, Kana reached a cave where he concealed himself. Inside, he encountered Kahumanu, who offered help. She brought him to a hidden shelter and tended his wounds. Though Kahekili's men regrouped and resumed their search, Kahumanu urged KAIANA to rest until healed. The two shared drinks, introduced themselves, and grew closer. The next morning, Kahumanu revealed she had a canoe ready and offered to help KAIANA and his family flee to Hawaii. He accepted. Along the way, they saw Kahekili's men ambush and kill a pale-skinned foreigner, stealing his weapons. Shortly after, Kahumanu and KAIANA crossed paths with the newcomers, who panicked and raised a gun in defense. When Kahekili's soldiers attacked, KAIANA saved one of the foreigners before escaping with Kahumanu. He then told her to guide his family safely to Hawaii, handing her a token meant for his brother Kuki, while he lured Kahekili's warriors away. KAIANA's brother grew restless, wanting to search for him, but Kahumanu arrived and relayed his message. Meanwhile, the foreigners prepared to leave on their boat, as Kahekili's soldiers continued chasing Keoua. During this time, Kahumanu also rescued another pale-skinned man in danger, departing alongside him. Kahekili's forces finally cornered KAIANA, forcing him into a desperate battle. Unable to keep running, he fought fiercely until he collapsed into the ocean with Kahekili's high chief. Kahekili's son commanded that their bodies be retrieved. By fortune, the foreigners pulled KAIANA from the sea and carried him onto their ship. Regaining consciousness, KAIANA rushed to the deck and tried to convince them to turn back, but they refused. Left without a choice, he was carried away with them. A year had passed, and KAIANA was living among the Paleskins while picking up their language. Meanwhile, Kahumanu stayed in Hawaii with KAIANA's family. One of the pale-skinned men also taught the children how to speak his tongue. KAIANA received training from them in handling firearms. On Oahu, King Kahekili's son was summoned by one of his father's soldiers to join his war council. At the same time, the last remaining chiefs of Oahu plotted to assassinate Kahekili using poison. Before their plan could unfold, Kahekili himself arrived, and his soldiers encircled the conspirators. He ordered the chiefs to kneel, threatening their families if they refused. With no choice, the chiefs submitted. Soon after, Kahekili's son arrived, just as the king demanded that the chief choose one family member to be poisoned in punishment for his betrayal. When he hesitated, unable to decide, Kahekili ordered all of his family poisoned, sparing only the chief himself. Back in Hawaii, Kamehameha learned that his uncle, King Kalaniʻopiu, had summoned him due to failing health. When Kamehameha visited, the king posed a challenging question, asking what he would do if he were ruler. Kamehameha's thoughtful reply impressed everyone, though Keoua was displeased by it. Meanwhile, Kahumanu was conversing with a pale skin named John in his language when her father interrupted, dismissing John and informing her that her wedding would take place that very night. Distressed, she objected. Elsewhere, KAIANA spoke with a pale skin who urged him to return to his family, telling him about an upcoming journey to Zamboanga where weapons could be obtained. Kahumanu confronted her father afterward, asking why he was forcing the marriage. He explained that with the king near death, reunion had to happen immediately, and revealed his belief that Kamehameha was the chosen ruler foretold by prophecy. Later, Kahumanu encountered Huku in the garden, who admitted she already knew of the marriage arrangements. Meanwhile, the Paleskins gathered in Zamboanga after their ship's bell signaled arrival, preparing to unload their cargo. KAIANA carried valuable coins to trade for weapons, but the locals regarded him with strange stares. A friend guided him to a place where guns were sold, yet his coins were deemed worthless for the purchase. They stopped to eat, and while his friend stepped away, KAIANA was approached by a drunken man, whom he swiftly overpowered. During this, he met a Hawaiian woman who recognized him by his speech. She introduced herself as Winnie, though others called her Vi. Offering to help him obtain a weapon, she explained she sought his help in return. Vi led him to a trader and provided sandalwood, which held far greater value than his coins, in exchange for a firearm. Though uneasy with her giving up something so valuable, KAIANA was persuaded by her reasoning. Elsewhere, Captain Melcafe listened to Marley describe unclaimed islands that, if seized, would grant control over Pacific routes from Alaska to Canton, which greatly intrigued him. Back in Hawaii, preparations for the marriage of Kamehameha and Kahumanu were underway. An older wife quietly told Kahumanu she would be expected to share Kamehameha's bed. That night, the people of Hawaii gathered to witness their union. As Kahumanu entered Kamehameha's chamber, the entire village looked on, marking the beginning of their marriage. Meanwhile, KAIANA's friend secretly crept into the captain's quarters and unexpectedly found Marley inside. Drawing his weapon, he threatened him, but Captain Melcafe defended Marley and viciously beat KAIANA's friend until he was left unconscious. A messenger rushed in to announce the passing of King Kalaniopio. The focus then moved to Keoua, who carried out the sacred rituals needed to assume his position as the new monarch. Though a ruler had been crowned, tension rose instantly. Despite Keoua wearing the crown, the true strength of the army drifted to Kamehameha, the one revered as the god of war. Meanwhile, on Oahu, word of the king's death reached Kahekili. Wasting no time, he called his commanders together, outlining his plan to strike Hawaii and exploit the moment of weakness. Yet not all were persuaded. One chief of Maui voiced hesitation, recalling the bloody end of the boy king and the disappearance of KAIANA. His doubts suggested the prophecy might not support Kahekili's ambition. But Kahekili's hunger for war blinded him. Consumed by his desire to wipe out the royal bloodline until only one remained, he twisted the prophecy to serve his vision, believing it foretold his family's rule above all others. Nothing could sway him. Back in Hawaii, we see that ahumanu, now a wife, had missed several English lessons with John. She resented her new role of submission, but John insisted that even within marriage there could be freedom. Over time, she slowly began to understand the truth in his words. Elsewhere, Kana awoke to find Tony's bed still empty. He sought out Vi to ask about his friend's whereabouts, but she brushed off his concerns. KAIANA, however, felt uneasy. His instincts told him something was wrong, though he lacked proof. He then questioned Marley, who offered vague and unhelpful replies. Frustrated, KAIANA wandered off, only to stumble upon cages packed with captives, many of them women, with even a baby crying among them. The sight ignited a storm of rage within him, and unable to contain himself, he struck down a soldier in broad daylight. That act triggered the full wrath of the guards, who descended on him without restraint. KAIANA managed to escape but was forced into hiding, making his path back home even more difficult. The following day, preparations for departure were underway, but KAIANA was nowhere in sight. His earlier clash drew trouble onto Vi as well, who pleaded with the captain to delay the ship for his sake. At the same time, Kupohi had long been aware of Nameki's affection for him. He reminded her that KAIANA might already be dead and urged her to move forward, suggesting she choose him instead. Nameki firmly refused. Soon after, Vi tracked KAIANA to his hiding spot, warning him to move quickly before he lost his chance. Still, he clung to the hope of rescuing Tony, but Vi insisted that hope was gone. To make matters worse, the captain had deceived them. His intention was to set sail that very night. Upon hearing that Tony might be locked inside a warehouse with other captives, KAIANA stormed in. Cutting through guards one by one, he fought fiercely until he freed the prisoners and set the building ablaze. Uprising spread through the chaos, and in the midst of it all, KAIANA finally found Tony, battered but alive. With the cannons already armed on the ship and Sambonga burning behind, KAIANA and Vi sprinted to the docks. They boarded just as flames devoured the night, while Marley, upon spotting KAIANA, bolted in fear for his life. Once safely aboard, the scene shifted to Nameki, who entered Kupohi's hut, where she began to give in to his advances. Meanwhile, Kamehameha is shown teaching a group of children while ahumanu watches fondly with a gentle smile. The bond between the two is slowly blossoming into genuine affection, and ahumanu continues to expand her sway over military affairs. Elsewhere, KAIANA, now gearing up for battle, spends time in the lower deck with Tony, playfully handling his weapons. Tony, deeply grateful for his rescue, expresses his thanks to KAIANA. Later, KAIANA meets with Vi, and during their talk she opens up about her past. She recalls how, in earlier days, people like them would face harsh consequences if caught dining together, since KAIANA is a chief and she a commoner, something forbidden by their gods. She also reveals she has a son, whom she left behind when he was still an infant. Her greatest sorrow is abandoning him, and she fears he may never understand her reasons or feel love for a mother he never truly knew. She asks KAIANA what awaits them back home, but he replies that home will be just as they left it. At the same time, Nameki and Kupohi remain deeply in love, often lost in their own romance. The following day, KAIANA's ship finally sails into familiar waters, and he is overjoyed to be back in his homeland. His return also offers John the chance to reunite with his people. Word of the ship's arrival spreads quickly, and Nameki, hearing the news of her husband's return, rushes out to see him with her own eyes. KAIANA and his company are greeted by Kamoku, who informs him that Kamehameha must soon decide whether to welcome both the foreigners and Vi into their fold, all while preparing for the looming conflict. Seeking redemption, KAIANA apologizes for his role in King Kahekili's massacre. Ahumanu is pleased to see him again, remembering their earlier meeting in the cave. Shortly after, Nameki finds KAIANA and, filled with joy, embraces him as he runs to his family. Kupohi, however, remains stunned though she hides her emotions. John also reunites with his people, happily telling them of the rising tensions among the chiefs as war draws near. KAIANA, introduced to his people, surprises them with his trousers. From a distance, Ahumanu observes KAIANA's return home with happiness. He entertains the children by showing them a fire trick, then later meets with his brothers to learn Kahekili's whereabouts. They reveal that Kalaniopeu has passed, and they now support Kamehameha. KAIANA argues that if the island stays divided, Kahekili will conquer the Hawaiian kingdom. His brothers assure him that Kamehameha is a just man, blessed with the title of God of War. When KAIANA insists on speaking with him, they explain Kamehameha is already preparing for war. KAIANA stresses that his purpose isn't to leave with them, but to ready them for the conflict ahead. Offering his service and that of his family to fight against Kahekili, he faces rejection. Ahumanu defends him, stating Kahekili is not a true king but a conqueror, and KAIANA, who once fought beside him, knows how to bring him down. KAIANA pleads that unity is their only hope, warning that if they remain divided, Kahekili's men will destroy them. Still, her father refuses his appeal. Meanwhile, Vi is finally reunited with her son. Later, KAIANA learns that Ahumanu has asked to see him, so he goes to her. He thanks her for sheltering his family and keeping them safe. They speak about the world outside, and KAIANA shares his experiences, describing the widespread suffering he witnessed. He warns that outsiders will soon come to claim their land. She then introduces him to her husband, and KAIANA once again thanks Kamehameha for safeguarding his family. To test KAIANA's abilities, Kamehameha suggests a sled race on the volcano's slopes. Namek, unsettled by KAIANA's return, reluctantly joins as they head toward the track. The priests have uncovered an old course long in use. The stakes are high. If KAIANA loses, he forfeits any voice in the council. Adding to the pressure, Kamehameha has never lost one of these contests. The race is straightforward, a daring slide down the volcano. By a narrow margin, KAIANA hits the water first. Kamehameha accepts the result graciously, admiring KAIANA's daring nature, and grants him a place on the council. This victory is promising for the foreigners, eager to secure trade and alter their future. KAIANA later shows Moku the guns they possess. But trouble soon follows. That night, Keoua acts first, setting fire to the food supplies without the backing of the other district chiefs, many of whom doubt war is the right path. By destroying the provisions, Keoua forces Kamehameha's hand, making it clear that war is now inevitable. Kamehameha and his allies survey the charred remains of their food supplies. KAIANA insists that Keoua should be eliminated swiftly, but Kahumanu has a different approach. She believes Keoua can be persuaded to join their cause peacefully, and KAIANA's wife, Kui, supports this idea. KAIANA, however, dismisses this as wishful thinking, convinced that Keoua is consumed by bloodlust. Still, Kamehameha places his faith in the Women's Council. KAIANA does not share this confidence, and instead places his trust in firearms and his new allies, particularly the foreigners. He cautions that war is inevitable, though the English appear supportive since maintaining the trade agreement benefits them greatly. Meanwhile, Tony instructs the locals in the use of guns, while the tense parley with Keoua proceeds. Kupuoi argues that if he and Kamehameha unite, they could fulfill the prophecy of reuniting the scattered kingdoms. Yet the discussion ends poorly. Keoua refuses any reconciliation, and before leaving, KAIANA brandishes his gun when Keoua challenges his loyalty. Elsewhere in Oahu, King Kahekili readies another strike, though many of his men doubt him. Prince Kupule seems the stronger option to lead, combining intellect with power, but he refuses to betray his father, despite disagreeing with his relentless pursuit of war. Kupule does confront Kahekili, warning against tarnishing their royal bloodline and undoing their achievements. Kahekili agrees to preserve Maui's purity, but in his own ruthless manner, he has the plotting chiefs tied to poles. When Kupule witnesses this, he kills one of them himself to ensure the king does not question his loyalty. Kahekili's ambitions may still come to fruition when Keoua considers joining forces with him in order to claim the island. In his quest to destroy Kamehameha and reclaim his place, Keoua effectively hands advantage to Kahekili. Seeking more men, Keoua promises that if supported, he will unite the kingdom and guarantee Hawaii will never resist Kahekili so long as peace is assured. Kahekili agrees but privately relishes the possibilities. He instructs Kapule to enlist the Chaos Bringer Apanui, a fearsome warrior eager to see Keoua dead and steal his glory. As Kahekili claims, chaos brings the harmony of rule. In Kahala, Hawaii, Kamehameha marks the birth of a new chief's child, urging celebration despite the dark tension. He hopes to ease his people's worries, though he knows war looms. Kahumanu, too, is expected to bear a child and extend his legacy, though her thoughts lie elsewhere. Word arrives from KAIANA that KAIANA has been scheming with spies behind Kamehameha's back. While Kamehameha seeks diplomacy, KAIANA looks for opportunities to strike Keoua. Since assassins cannot reach him, full-scale conflict appears unavoidable. Kahumanu finds herself torn, desiring peace but acknowledging bloodshed is inevitable. Tradition restricts her role to that of a wife, not a leader. KAIANA also feels cornered, while his wife fears Kahumanu's growing influence over him. This tension escalates later when Kahumanu and KAIANA nearly share a kiss, only to be interrupted by greater danger. A band of opportunistic British, led by the prejudiced Marley and the cunning Captain Metcalfe, arrive with intentions to exploit Hawaii. They are quickly captured and brought before Kamehameha. Metcalfe pretends to seek only trade and peace, though his true aims are clear. KAIANA distrusts them and secretly boards their ship with Tony, intent on killing them. But as they confront Marley, a conch signals Kamehameha's arrival. He halts KAIANA and instead sends John back with the English, carrying words of goodwill. KAIANA sees this as weakness, further enraged when he learns it was Kui who betrayed his plan to Kamehameha. Negotiations collapse as Metcalfe scorns John, vowing others will soon descend upon the islands. The British do not withdraw. Instead, Marley and Metcalfe attack another bay, unleashing canisters packed with nails on the villagers. KAIANA rushes to help, but the massacre is devastating. The beach becomes a slaughterhouse, villagers cut down, and though Marley is thrown overboard, Metcalfe sails away. The devastation is immense, 248 dead, including Wayne, who died shielding her son. Furious, KAIANA prepares to confront Kamehameha, blaming him for the slaughter. Moku defends their leader, but KAIANA remains bitter, convinced his warnings were ignored. Kahumanu sides against her father and Kamehameha, seeking out KAIANA despite being shunned by those closest to her. She eventually reunites with him, urging that he must live and fight in honor of Nahi's memory. Though torn about his loyalties, he accepts that he must choose a side, for Hawaii's future is at stake. Kupuohi also meets with Kamehameha, encouraging him to rely on KAIANA. Acknowledging he cannot win alone, Kamehameha agrees that firearms will be decisive and allows KAIANA to train the warriors. Then a nearby volcano rumbles and erupts, a sign many interpret as the gods favoring Keoua. Regardless, the truth is clear. War is inevitable and blood will soon be spilled. The last chapter of Chief of War opens in fire and cruelty. Deep within the volcanic landscape, Keoua demonstrates his brutality for all to see. A man is forced to his knees, perched on the trembling earth of the volcano itself. Keoua pulls his teeth from his mouth and demands loyalty, showing his men that fear, and not love, is the glue of his rule. It is a scene both terrifying and prophetic. The mountain beneath them rumbles, restless, as though the gods themselves disapprove. Far from Keoua, KAIANA and his allies spend a night before battle in quieter ways, preparing themselves for what could be their last dawn. KAIANA shares a moment with Tony, noticing the lash scars carved into his back. But Tony is no longer a runaway slave, no longer trembling. KAIANA tells him that whatever happens tomorrow, he has a home with them. He need never run again. Not all conversations are so simple. Namek approaches KAIANA and admits a truth he had carried like a stone. During KAIANA's absence, he and Kupuohi turn to one another for comfort. KAIANA surprisingly forgives him, though the air between them grows heavy. Namek confesses that he still loves her, but KAIANA's heart has shifted. He feels something for ahumanu, the woman whose influence over Kamehameha grows with each passing day. That attraction is dangerous, complicated, and unresolved. As morning rises, warriors braid their hair, oil their skin, and sharpen their weapons. The air hums with chants and ritual, each side calling upon the gods. Even the women, Kupi, Heat, and Kahumanu, stand ready to fight. Across the lava plains, Keoua's army lines up against Kamehameha's forces. Before blades are drawn, insults fly between representatives, Apanui for Keoua, KAIANA for Kamehameha. Words burn, but soon words are not enough. The battle explodes in the Black Desert. Spears, muskets, and blades clash beneath the volcanic sky. KAIANA cuts his way through the chaos, sometimes wielding native weapons, sometimes relying on the thunder of foreign rifles. Namek fights at his side, handing him arms as needed, the two moving in rhythm as though born to battle together. Tony proves himself in the fray, wielding the guns with precision and fury. Meanwhile, Heek faces her greatest enemy, Apanui. Kahumanu shoots him in the leg, crippling him, and Heek takes the opening to confront the man who once tormented her. Their fight is vicious and personal, Heek finally seizing the justice she has craved. Elsewhere in the chaos, KAIANA makes a brutal statement of his own. He drives his spear through Keoua's priest, yanks out his tongue, and devours it in front of friend and foe alike. It is shocking, savage, and symbolic. The gods and men alike are watching. The tide of war pushes KAIANA closer to Keoua. He raises his weapon, ready to end the rival chief himself. But before the fatal blow can fall, the volcano roars to life. The earth splits, and molten fire pours across the battlefield. Keoua and KAIANA are both swallowed by the violent eruption. When the smoke clears, Keoua lies dead, burned and broken by the mountain's wrath. KAIANA, battered but alive, is dragged from the ash. Kahumanu rushes to his side, relief spilling from her as she helps him to his feet. Not far away, tragedy strikes. Kupuohi is pierced by a spear, collapsing in Namek's arms. He pulls the weapon from her body, desperate to save her, and in that moment their bond is renewed. Bloody but breathing, she clings to him, and the two hold on to each other amidst the ruin. News of the battle spreads quickly. Kamehameha has triumphed, Keoua is gone, and much of the glory belongs to KAIANA. When word reaches King Kahekili, his face darkens. He learns not only of Keoua's death but also of KAIANA's survival, a survival that makes the warrior both a threat and a rising legend. At once, Kahekili prepares to wage war on Hawaii, ensuring that this bloody victory is only the beginning of a greater conflict. The episode closes with no peace, only the heavy silence after battle and the promise of more war to come. Keoua has fallen, but the islands are far from united. The gods are restless, kings are scheming, and KAIANA, scarred by fire yet still standing, emerges not just as a fighter, but as a man destined to reshape Hawaii's future. The Season 1 Chief of War episode 1-9 then came to an end. Kindly subscribe for more thrilling recap like this. Thanks for watching and goodbye.